This is Graphic Novel TK, your podcast guide to comic book publishing.
Hi, and welcome to Graphic Novel TK. I'm Gina Gagliano.
And I'm Allison Wilgus.
We're excited to talk today about design. It's basically the process of making books the prettiest, which is obviously the best. So we have an exciting guest here today. Hilary, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little about who you are, how you got into comics, and what you're doing now?
Yeah, I'm Hilary Thompson. Thank you for having me. And I live in Portland, Oregon with two very adorable black cats named Ziggy and Ozzy. And they're the loves of my life. And other than that, I am a happy little designer at Oni Press, and I enjoy everything from print media to digital design to branding and experience design. And if you walked into my apartment, you would just be bombarded by stacks of books everywhere because I'm also an avid book collector, so there's books all over my life.
It's fine. It's research.
I mean, that is also my apartment, so...
And also mine.
Yeah, it's just like Raven's claws, man. I don't know. But yeah, so my mom says it looks like creative clutter, but she's just trying to be nice. So I started diving into design work like 10 years ago, and I was doing Harry Potter fan graphics on Photoshop 7, which was really fun.
That's awesome.
And I was smitten, and I just spent all my time trying to learn, and I also learned how to code, so that's also another passion of mine, which kind of helps with technical design a little bit. So I went to college for design, and I spent a year as a design editor for a newspaper where I learned so much about InDesign, so many like key commands and everything. And then I got the job at Oni, and they posted that online through Craigslist. So I've been there for 4 years, and that's all I've been doing so far, just fueling my eternal passion for books. And it's not stopping from here, apparently.
Oh my God, you got your job on Craigslist? That's like, I've literally never heard of that.
Should I say that or no?
No, it's great. I mean, I think that there's this feeling like, I was actually just talking to friends about this the other day, that every time a job gets listed for any comics company, it's like a formality and somebody's already pegged for that job and there's basically no point in applying for that job. But
Exactly.
It's like being reminded that sometimes people do just list a job and people get it is good.
It was pretty fabulous to like come out of college and be like, oh, that good old Oni Press that I love is looking for a designer. I'm just going to apply, like not thinking that you might get it because there's someone that you look up to and then you get it and you're just like, wow, they're really nice people. Or like, that's the same with anybody is everybody's nice, but the computer kind of blocks you from that.
Yeah. I think that possibly getting a job off of Craigslist might be more common in non-New York publishers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And also too a lot bigger because we only have about 20 people working with us, which is a lot compared to the past years. We had as little as 11 when I worked there.
Yeah, 20 sounds like a lot, actually.
Yeah. I know. Especially for all just sitting in one room together. So we're happy that there's more projects as we grow in size, and then there's more people to cover those projects. So a little bit less stress.
That's ideal, actually.
Yeah, so it's pretty nice. We get to work really closely together, and everybody's like really good friends.
So can you tell us a little about the day-to-day of your job? Like you come in, you get into work, and then what happens?
So I come in, and like what I love about publishing is that a lot of the projects are long-term, so you can always have something to do. There's never a moment where you don't have something to work on. But it depends on if you have something really short-term sprout up. That's totally different than a book design. Because at Oni, we have to kind of wear a lot of hats. Everybody just kind of has to do everything all the time in terms of, the general focus of what you do. So day-to-day, I could be doing, just scheduling or having a slow day where I can schedule or just kind of go around and ask people, like, can I see what they're working on? Do they need help? And do critiques and things like that. Print things out and really, really take a detailed view of a project, which is really exciting. And we love when we have time to do that. But otherwise, it's usually a lot of different small things that sprout up along the way of a longer book design, kind of, because we have more time to do that. So you kind of do that a little slower because you want to cherish those moments of slowness. But we could do anything from, or me in particular, anything from book design to like a logo design or interior design to social media graphics, technical things like prepping artwork for print or fixing the printer if it jams. Helping with our data management, because I like to do things like that as well. And even keeping the office clean, like just anything from that. But in terms of design, it's usually either print projects or digital projects, and helping critique and make sure that our schedule stays on track. I think that's probably a pretty good blanket of what I do.
You're talking about sometimes you have like a small job that comes up from an ongoing project. Like what kinds of things come up specifically?
Yeah, like the kind of bigger small projects would be like a rush ad for Publishers Weekly, because those are kind of formulaic, but when they come up, they have to be done now, or it's just pretty quick. And so you might be working on the same type of book in the same book batch or the things that are going on sale. But so at least you have the design fresh in mind, but they'll come up and they need to be done within a day versus 2 weeks or 4 weeks for a book design. So those will come up and you have to drop everything and do those. And some people don't respond well to that. So being a senior designer, I'm always like hearing what's happening to make sure I can like calm them down if they get frazzled, make sure it gets out the door and make sure it's up to our standards. But yeah, those little projects like that where you could be cruising along, kind of be like, oh, I love this logo design. I'm doing research, doing something a little bit more open-ended. And then all of a sudden something comes in and, or we need fix a cover comp has like the wrong author name on it and it has to be fixed right now. And it's down to us to fix it. There's only 4 of us in our department. So it's just down to us to drop everything and make sure those things get done because nobody else really can use the programs or has the licenses to the programs.
So for you, it's not only like I have to fix this cover, but also possibly I have to make sure that these other people who might also have to fix a cover aren't freaking out or forgetting to do it or... Exactly.
Yeah, I kind of have to like art direct and also to kind of like design direct, make sure like technical aspects are on point and be like, oh, you just saved that as RGB and needs to be CMYK and things like that. So I'm always kind of like looking out for what everybody else is doing to make sure we don't have more problems in the future, I guess, to interrupt us from doing the larger book designs. Try to keep it smooth.
I mean, that's great because it's so easy to have a long day and just forget to tick the right box.
Yeah, exactly. It's so true. And stuff like that. It's like nobody's in trouble. There's no fault. I don't get mad at anybody because we have to move really fast. So as long as somebody's trying to look out for the fact that we are moving fast, then hopefully mistakes won't be made.
Someday you will forget to tick the box.
I know. And I'll be like thankful that I've never been upset about it at somebody else. And I'll be like, please be nice. Please.
So you've been talking about ad design and logo design and critiquing books and interior design, like all of that stuff. But are there some parts of your job that aren't necessarily as directly related to design, like meetings or conferences or kind of stuff that someone might not expect if they apply for a job as a designer and think that what they're going to be doing is 8 to 10 hours a day sitting at their computer and lettering things?
Yeah. So there are a lot of meetings and there's a lot of just kind of like maintaining even file structure, like down to the very nitty gritty technical stuff of file structure, file naming conventions, making sure internal branding is good and making sure our brand guidelines are updated. And also to going to conventions is a huge part of it, of something that you wouldn't expect as a designer to be important for them to attend. And also something that not everybody's comfortable with, talking to large crowds or talking to people they don't know. And it takes like a certain type of personality, I think, to do that. So I think it's important for at least one person or 2 people in the department to actually like to sell books that are designers because they can talk about what it takes to make the book and get people excited about how it even came to be. So that's my favorite part. And I know my fellow designer, Kate Stone, she worked at a bookstore for a long time. So she just like loves everything about publishing as well. And so she and I are both very excited about the books and talking to people about books. So that's a part of the job not most people would assume. You'd think, again, like you said, you're behind a desk, but we love talking to people as well because like we design it for an audience. We don't just design it for ourselves. So that's an important aspect, I think, of publishing and of graphic design versus fine art. We're providing a service more or less for somebody else, like for the readers and for the authors to be happy. So we have to have that connection and empathy with other people, something that isn't really written in a job description.
So I have 2 follow-up questions for what you just said that I'm really interested in. So one, you talked about things like file naming conventions and guidelines. So Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because is the point of that basically a bunch of different people have to be working on these books and they have to be able to look at something and instantly understand what they're looking at?
Yeah, I think it's, I guess for the brand guidelines, that would be more for just the company logos, or if we see mistakes, we have to double check and be like, this logo doesn't fit really well on this new trade dress or something. If we change formats for something, or we change margin sizes and we forgot to think that, oh, this, like, our own logo doesn't translate well to this, or we have a new book that has a really tiny spine and our logo doesn't fit on it. So we're like, okay, how are we going to fix this for this new problem that's never been proposed to us before? So being able to speak out about that and make sure that it stays within Oni Press brand standards, but we might have to take off the box of our logo for one tiny little spine, and that's okay as long as we all come to a consensus about it. But things like that, and file naming conventions too, because there's so many different people working on these files that the amount of time gets wasted when we're asking each other, where is this? Like, where did you say that as? And sometimes we'll just be like, okay, we have to just readdress this because everybody keeps getting it wrong. So then you kind of have to stop and fix things. You have to slow down in order to speed up, I think, sometimes. Yeah, it's an important part of communication with your team. And that's also another thing about design, I think, that isn't in the job description necessarily. Well, it sort of is, but is being able to be open and communicative when things are not working versus when things are working well.
Like, if you keep having to stop and spend 5 minutes explaining your InDesign file to somebody, maybe you should set your InDesign file up differently.
Exactly, yeah, together, and then you don't have to stop every 5 minutes, which adds up a lot in the end.
And the other thing I wanted to ask about is, so when you're doing conventions, are you working the booth? Are you doing panels? Like, what kinds of work are you doing at a convention?
Personally, I've sold at the booth, which is mostly what everybody at Oni would do because we don't hire an outside sales team. And we know our books best, so it's pretty fun to talk to people and be like, yeah, I worked on that. Like, you worked on it? We're like, yeah, we're right here. But I've been on a panel once, and that was definitely a new experience for me, a design panel, which is super fun. But yeah, so it could be anything from panels to selling, and also just trying to connect with creators and people you have never met before that we work with just through, emails in passing. And then it's nice to go up and meet them and just kind of put a face to the name, things like that. Eat a lot of food.
Food is important at conventions.
It's extremely important.
Yes. I mean, it's important all the time, but especially at conventions where I feel like everyone is liable to fall over if they do not remember to feed themselves.
I brought a case of Kind bars to San Diego.
Yeah, it's so easy to forget.
Okay, so going back to design work at your desk, can you talk us through the process of cover design? Someone at Oni comes in and is like, hello, this book, it must go to the printer and it needs a cover. Like, what is that process like? Is that the first time you're hearing of the book? Like, how does the cover happen?
Yeah, so I've kind of tried to study what other publishers do as much as the internet allows for cover design. And I think Oni is a little bit different, or maybe it might be comics in general are a little bit different than what I've found about prose book publishing. And so a lot of times when we'll be just kind of given the cover art, and it's hard on our shorter timeline to really get a cover concept before the artist has ever drawn it, because we're just moving really fast. And in comics too, I think design in the past has been a little bit neglected. And so our design team isn't brought in sometimes until it's too late. And we're like, oh, we had this great idea, but the art's already done and we can't implement it. That's just too bad. But it still sells well. It still does its job, but it could have been better if we would have been brought in earlier. So at Oni, luckily, our editorial team's so responsive, and we told them that we'd like to be involved earlier. And so they're starting to involve us earlier, which is great. So that means that we can, if we see a sketch early, which we used to not see sketches, we would just see finished art. But so we'll see sketches early, and sometimes if we have like a lot of time, then we can go through a couple sketches and, be like, oh, we could put the logo here or there, or, have them draw like a specific kind of art that we need to integrate the logo. It'll generally be the first thing that we see if it's not already done. But sometimes we just do the logo without we'll just get like touchstones or like inspiration from the author. So they'll send us, like covers that they like and a general idea of what they're going to draw. And sometimes we just have to complete the logo beforehand. And it gets a little wacky And I think it's something that the whole comics industry is trying to iron out, or at least us. But it's just a work in progress to get it to where we have enough time to make the best cover we can, because it really sells the book. It's really the first thing people see on the shelves. And so, it's really important that we do get involved as early as possible.
So when you're saying logo here, do you mean the Oni logo, or do you mean like the title for the book series? Like, what do you mean specifically?
Oh yeah, the title treatment, the type treatment for the book series, because for a lot of times they can be really illustrative and a little gaudy sometimes, but it depends, and it'll be a good gaudy. But try to make the title treatment as impactful as the rest of the cover, because a lot of times we don't really have that much control over the cover because someone else is drawing it, like books from Penguin or other publishers like that. The designer, it seems like they get to choose what goes on the cover, but for us, we don't really have a choice. It's the main characters, or it's the art from the book, and so our original idea goes in the logo as a designer.
It sounds like the editorial team are really involved in the cover direction too, from what you're saying.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they're like the project managers, and also to the artists if they don't really want a certain message, and they'll end up drawing the cover in the end, because we rarely will have a very graphic cover that doesn't include the illustrator's drawing on it. So they're a huge role in what the final cover is. And if they don't like an idea, then they'll just draw what they want, which is fine, but sometimes it hinders a great idea that we had.
So when you're thinking about a cover, when you're like, okay, here I have this blank square of space, it sounds like the editor and the author and you are all kind of like putting ingredients together to make this happen. And the editor and the author kind of kick off the conversation, figuring out what kind of things they want to do. And you kind of chip in with your ideas and also with some type direction.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess in the end, it's really the logo or the type treatment for the cover that is uniquely the designers, unless like the Tea Dragon Society, Katie O'Neill had already just hand lettered it, and it was perfect, obviously, because it's Katie. But
yeah, she's amazing.
So something like that is just more like art direction and placement and resizing. But when there's like our blank slate as designers in comics, I think is more of a blank illustrator file for the logo / type treatment. It's rarely the blank full cover. So that's the difference, I think, which is an interesting difference between comics design and like prose design. Like, it depends on the artist too. And like Small Favors was one of the books I designed. That one, since it was more of like a classy collection, I got to do everything on that. But a lot of times when it's like a standard trade, they want a nice action-packed or, suitable full image of art that's from the creator, which makes perfect sense.
So I know this varies a lot from publisher to publisher. For you guys, is your sales team also involved in this conversation, or not so much?
Yeah, they will be, definitely. From experience as a designer, for something that we feel really strongly about, there's no reason we can't we haven't gone to sales and editorial being like, look, we really, really think this is a good idea, and like we think it's going to fit the demographic and all these things, and we'll talk about it. But that's like the best case scenario when we have the most time to go back and forth. A lot of times we're just under a really tight schedule, so we just need to do the best solution for what the time we have. I just always feel like there could be more, but that's not the best way to go about anything. Gets you a little neurotic, but it's okay as long as you communicate with the rest of your team.
So I know that Oni has a new distribution deal with Simon & Schuster, which is super exciting. Mm-hmm. Are the people at Simon & Schuster ever giving you feedback on cover design? Like, are they coming back and maybe this is too new for it to have happened yet, but are they kind of coming back and being like, well, Barnes & Noble says they would buy some more copies if this cover was blue instead of yellow?
No, actually, they have in the past, and they'll usually say that directly to our marketing team. And then the marketing team, if there's anything very crucial, they'll let us know. That's happened with like titles, like book titles. They've even, I think, mentioned, like, well, we don't like this type of word. Or specifically, I remember with Altered History of Willa Sparks, they mentioned in particular that Barnes & Noble, they don't like covers with a split face, where one side of the face has a certain type of style of art and the other type of the face has like opposite haircuts or something like that. And that was a really interesting particular thing that Barnes & Noble does not like.
I've heard that kind of thing before. Like, this bookseller doesn't like fire.
Yeah.
Or this bookseller hates yellow, or like whatever.
So there's some other parts of the cover also. Obviously, there's the spine, there's the back cover. Sometimes books have flaps.
Mm-hmm.
How does that process go? Do those get designed at the same time as the front cover that you're working on?
Yeah, they do actually. I love French flaps. We're like crazy for French flaps at Oni.
I know, they're so good.
I know, and they're always a little expensive, but we're always like, put French flap or like quote it, because we wanted to see if we can get them. But so yeah, they'll be included in the cover template that you get from the printer, and we use a specific printer most of the time, so their templates are always accurate, and they definitely are considered right when you start designing the cover. And I think they're a huge plus when it comes to book design, because there's just so much more space to design on and to include just like extra touches and spot gloss here and there and all that. It's just really fun to have special treatments. It's my favorite part of any book design, is deciding where the special treatments go and what it's going to bring to the book.
So then I guess the next thing after the cover, or maybe it actually comes before the cover, is the interior. So what is that process like? Like, what do you get of the interior and when, and how do you kind of approach laying out, lettering, getting a book colored, like all of that process?
Yeah, like, what's the creator giving you, and then what do you do with it?
Yeah, so especially in comics, again, there's a lot of times if it's not an OGN or an original graphic novel, then that means that it's already been published before in floppies, like the single issues, and then we collect them in trades. So we've already had the art, which is, the main chunk of the guts, as we call it. We call the interiors as guts of the book. And so, yeah, so basically for me, what I have always focused on in my design life is typesetting, and that's like my number one thing. Is I'll focus on typesetting until my eyes fall out or turn into letters or something. But I also try to think of it as like a brand, its own special brand. So you decide on all the design elements like colors, and you have little flourishes or little illustrations that you do that are custom if it suits the book. So just having fun with those on the interior design, especially in comics when you don't have very many pages that you're designing on the interiors. It's usually just the first like 5 pages and then back matter if there is any, because otherwise the guts have already been drawn, have already been published, lettered, colored. You don't touch them necessarily except for prepping. So for design, it's kind of like, oh, what can I do with just the few pages I have and make them really special to, like, when you open the book, the half title, what they're first going to see when they open the book, that's really special. And that's what we have total control over. So that's the exciting part. And if you're going to do anything, then typeset well, because that's, typesetting the creator names on the full title spread or the indicia, like even the copyright, like don't have any orphans, don't have any widows, like if you have control over anything, just make sure it's really focused in and detailed.
And can you define orphans and widows for our viewers who did not listen to our terminology episode?
I don't think we did that, actually.
Maybe we didn't, but they're awesome. It's an awesome publishing term.
Yeah, I don't know this one. Tell me.
Yeah, I always mix up if it's the orphan or the widow. I think the orphan is the single word at the bottom of like a paragraph. If you're typesetting, just like says like end or something, a period on a single line. So it's left behind. And then at the top, or like if you have a paragraph that's running and then it leaves a single word at the very top of a page at the end of a paragraph, those guys are just, you got to cut them out.
They are a problem. So you're talking about what to do when you have a trade paperback collection, but what do you do when you have an original graphic novel, like something like one of Katie O'Neill's books or Tara O'Connor's The Altered History of Willow Sparks, or...
Yeah, they're more fun because they're more open-ended, especially if the creator is open to trying some things. Like Katie O'Neill, if I just had an idea and was like, can you draw this because it's going to fit perfectly here, or I want to set the scene to make it look like you're inside of a forest or something like that, then they can just be like, oh yeah, I'll draw that. But sometimes with trades, the design is just kind of standard, especially a licensed title. We can't really do very much. We can't really request assets, but definitely with OGNs, that's when you feel like it's a little bit more unique for design and as a designer. because it's never been out before, I guess, and usually not as many creators involved. So if it's just like one or two people, it's way easier to wrangle everybody to come to a consensus.
Yeah, you're getting to do everything start to finish, which is really, really fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And like there's sometimes when there's like 5 creators and nobody can decide on anything. You're like, oh man, why did I ask if we could add, something like that? It's always good to ask, but you're just like, oh no, I just made you guys fight over something. Or
yeah. So when you have an original graphic novel, what are people turning into you as far as materials? Do you get like black and white line art that you letter, or do you get the line art and the color all at once? Do you get lettering ever from the authors? Like what pieces kind of come to you, and how do they come to you? Are people like sending you hard drive?
It totally depends on the creator's preference and if they can handle all 3. Like we have some awesome creators like Xandra Cannon. He does the line art, so he draws, he colors, and he hand letters everything, which is amazing, and he does it so well. And so we have creators who kind of all in one, or we also have teams where we have a specific illustrator, we have a specific colorer, and then a specific letterer. So those are all 3 different people, and so those all come in at different stages. So the standard is we usually have a separate person per step, which would be we get line art in, and that gets QC'd, which is quality controlled. I guess it's kind of like a production term. QC'd by our pre-press lead, Angie, who's the best. And so she'll make sure that it's the right color black and all the things that make sure it'll print well. And she does that also with colors that come in separately, but they'll have the line art on top. And so we get files in that are, we prefer TIFFs and PSDs that we can open in Photoshop. And obviously CMYK, not RGB, because it's just too hard to go back.
You need to get the files that are going to print.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it's
not just the ones that show up on your computer.
Yeah, in the glows, because sometimes we get files in that are RGB and they have like really awesome glows, or like something's glowing, and then we're like, oh man, that's just gonna all go poop, and it's just gonna go flat, and it's just gonna look like crap. So
yeah, it's only your screen that glows and not paper.
Yeah, exactly. And so usually we'll as our team, we're really diligent about making sure we're not just going to be like, oh, well, so we'll usually ask them to recolor it. If we have time, we'll usually make time for stuff like that. Even though it's a mistake, we want to make sure that it's what they wanted. So we're usually like, can you recolor this because it's RGB? It's not going to, we'll show them the difference. Be like, this is what you gave us. This is what it's going to look like. So please recolor it, because we want you to be happy and not just be like, oh, wow, that Oni Press team just totally overrode my, art and stuff and didn't even tell me why. So that's another thing we try to uphold, is good standards and ethics for the creators we work with, because not everybody knows everything. You got to teach someone if they don't know, instead of just ignore it. So yeah, we try to be good with our technical communication. And so we love when creators and authors and everybody, we love when they ask questions about trapping or about all the technical things that you don't really learn in school. You just kind of have to learn on the job. So that's another hard part of it, but we were happy to help anybody learn.
Oh, trapping, my favorite.
So when you're working with authors, do you have design specs that you send to them before they start drawing their book, or are you just making do with what they give you? How early in the process are you getting involved when a book is acquired by Oni or a series is acquired? Are you literally being like, hey, welcome to Oni, here's your design specs for drawing your book?
Yeah, we actually have a creator packet. It started a while ago, but we just recently finished revising it because we got some new employees. And so we have a whole welcome to Oni Press. It's a 30-page thing, or maybe less. We have everybody's bios, and we have the lifespan of a book, every single step. I think it's we have about an 8-month production time or something like that. So we come in about 4 weeks until it goes to print, which is kind of a short timeline, but it's worked out pretty well so far. So yes, we give them a creator packet, and each department has their own little section that we write down all of our house guidelines and our house styles and fonts. And we have a list of approved fonts that we own as a company to give to freelancers, being here are all these fonts that you could use and you can borrow from us under our license and things like that. So we don't get a font. We're like, oh shoot, we have to buy it now because you have the license and we don't have the license. But so we try our best, and we hope people read it. Sometimes we get things that are clearly laid out in the guidelines, but don't happen, and that's okay. We just try to reiterate what we said. But yeah, so I think it's pretty fun. We all got to write bios and went through and made sure we added all of our like pet peeves, but not worded that way, but make sure everybody's clear on what we see as issues to make the best product or book and make the workflow pretty easy. So
not to turn this into horror theater, but can you give us some, of course, anonymized examples of cases where people have not maybe paid attention to guidelines and you've had to fix it? Like,
I'm sure people have turned things in and they've been in RGB
or in the wrong ratio or...
No, that's happened before. And luckily we've been able to fix them. But I mean, it's usually like an extra stress or an added bump date to a sale date or something like that. But so I'm trying to be general here, but a lot of it was, technical or not even to a template size. Like we're like, here's a template to draw either a cover or a page of art. And it's just, I just don't even know what they were looking at. You're like, wait, this is square. And we need, that's a little exaggerated, but still I'm just like, oh man, like if you wanted help, you should have said it first.
These first 20 pages are at a 3:4 ratio, but the next 100 pages are at a 5:8 ratio.
Exactly. Or the best is when we ask them to make it, if it's too low resolution, we're like, we need this at 600 DPI, and they'll just blow it up, and so there's all this artifacting, and it just all pixelated. We're like, that's not what we meant, and then so we have to have them redo it again, and it's just like we don't want them to be embarrassed, but they should be a little embarrassed.
I have a friend who I will not name.
A friend?
No, this one was not me. Who did draw a very large number of pages at 72 DPI and had to redo all of them.
Oh, I know. That's why we're like, please keep a raw copy of anything that we give you. Like,
what were they thinking?
They were thinking it was a webcomic and it wasn't going to matter.
Yeah, exactly. We're just like, we just want it to look great. That's all we want.
Okay, so you've designed the cover, you've designed the flaps, you've designed the spine, you've designed the back cover, you've designed the book and the front matter and the back matter.
We also do a lot of the marketing materials too.
But what happens then? So like, is that the point where the original graphic novel goes off to copy editing, or does it go off in the ether somewhere else?
Yeah, so we will have, usually it's like 4 weeks out, 4 to 6 weeks out for us is a good amount of time to be given the work order. It's what we call it. So we get the work order, our design squad, and it has, the book map, and this page has this, and story pages 1 through 100 here. And so, yeah, we design the book. We do everything. We critique with each other within the design department. We print things out. We're like, does this look weird? Does that guy look like he has a penis coming out of his head or something? And then but then we realize no, or we're just seeing things because we've been staring at our screens too long. And then so it's all designed, and then we print out the proofing or the whole proof. Then we give it to editorial, and they'll go through and give lettering corrections and even sometimes design corrections if they're like, this color looks like puke or something, we didn't realize, and things like that. It's nice to have a lot of extra eyes on it. And then we usually go through, we have to have 2 full proofs at least for at least 2 editors to go through. And we go through again as a design and production, which is kind of joint for us. We're design and production. And then once that happens, we will prep it and send it to the printer. And then we have 2 more rounds of proofing through the printer when they send us things. So we're pretty diligent. And still things slip by, but I've rarely ever seen any like glaring mistakes, which I'm happy about.
So where do the authors come in on that? Do they get to take a look at the proofs too at any point?
Yeah, definitely. When we finish the second round of corrections, before we send it to the printer, we'll rip a PDF, like, a low web ready PDF of the whole book to show the creators. And so luckily when we send it to the printer and we get printer proofs back, any corrections that we have are free, so we don't have to pay per page or anything. So that's usually, we try to get the creator a proof before, if we can, like earlier, before printer proof stage, but that doesn't always happen. So, but luckily when they do have corrections, we implement their corrections then when we still can, when it's still free and they don't have to stop the presses and anything like that. So, and then we get our final proof from the printer, which is called a fold and gather. And that's when it's like printed on the paper we chose, the paper stock we chose. And sometimes we'll get a wet proof, which is where you get like the spot gloss on like a big flat piece of paper. It's the actual cover with all the treatments on it, just flat, not bound. And that's when you can't make any changes unless it's like do or die. So I've never experienced a book that we've had to change at fold and gather stage. So that's very good because it's very costly. So that's not good.
So that sounds really fast to have a 4 to 6 weeks turnaround from I have gotten this book. The whole book needs to be laid out and lettered and have front matter and back matter and a cover and go through 2 rounds of proofs and then go to the printer. It seems like you must be working at hyperspeed all the time.
Yeah, that's insane.
A little bit. Yeah. Luckily, so like the front cover, we'll design the logo on the front cover about 8 weeks out, which I forgot to mention, but that's when we have to do it for solicits for Diamond catalog, or maybe that's about 6 weeks. But yeah, so for the Diamond Previews catalog where we solicit just the front cover. Before Simon & Schuster, it was so hard to change covers from circulating around if they had the not final cover tag on it. So we were like, okay, let's try not to do that because it's so difficult to change it. But with Simon & Schuster, their platform, I think Firebrand is what it is. It's way easier to change the cover comps on Amazon, on Barnes & Noble, and if there's a change to it. So now maybe it's not as big of a deal if we don't have a final cover. But we try to make it as close as we can 6 weeks in advance, which is kind of hard sometimes, but we try our best. But yeah, so then we kind of just have to go wham, bam, bam, do the back cover. And if you're like me, you're kind of always thinking about your books like in and out of the office. So I'm always like, oh, I had this idea last night when I was going to sleep. And then, then the cover's born. But
so this is like a super nuts and bolts question. And I'm sure this varies from company to company, but now I'm curious. For you guys personally,
yeah,
like the cover on Amazon, are you doing that? Is sales doing that? Is the editor, like who's the person who actually has to hit the buttons and upload the replacement cover to the software?
I believe that is our marketing team. We have a special projects manager, Amber O'Neill. Hey, no, but she helps with our metadata and our data management, which is something we've never had before.
So now my follow-up to that is also, so with backing up with the printer, are you and your coworkers the ones who are dealing with a printer? Do you have a separate production person who deals with a printer? Like who's emailing back and forth with the printer while this process is going on?
It's usually our director of production, which is Troy Look, and he really is really good with all of the technical, like the numbers, making sure everything's good. We get our templates, make sure that, so he communicates with the printer a lot, but a lot of times like myself or Angie, because there's a certain method to pre-press, to exporting the books properly, we can upload them ourselves. But when it comes to talking to the printer directly, because there's definitely a communication barrier that I think takes time to get accustomed to, that's either my director or our executive editor, Ari, because she's good at scheduling and we all wear a lot of hats. But yeah, so Ari does it because she just has experience from the past, from a lot of making sure our projects are on time. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of closer to the heart than most people realize, that like I myself or Angie will just click and upload all the files to the printer, and that's that, and it's nobody else but us. It's kind of raw.
So there's some things in production that kind of overlap with editorial and design, like choosing what paper stock to use, or like what kind of cover boards you're going to use,
Totally.
or the effects. Like how much of that is part of your job? Are you getting to be like, okay, we need to use uncoated paper this time and it needs to be 140 pounds?
Yep. That's like my favorite part, is when you feel really strongly about either side. Like, some books don't look good with like foil on them. Just because you like foil doesn't mean this book needs foil, but we like, it's like foil on everything, but it doesn't match. This is like a World War II book, or I guess that would match. Anyway,
only if it's gunmetal.
Yeah, exactly. Not like a sparkly gold foil. But yeah,
so I'm curious about that book where that is appropriate, and also is about World War II. But anyway, please.
It's a World War II book with unicorns.
But yeah, so we have printer specs meetings where our team, design, editorial, and sometimes marketing, if there are some titles that are heavy hitters and not reprints or, not things that are like hot off the marketing press. But so we'll all meet together and we'll just figure out how many quantities. We'll figure out cover treatments, and people can come with like, ideas, or because we're doing a book about a dinosaur that's coming out soon. And I thought it'd be cool to do embossing on like his skin for like tactile texture. So we can come and present whatever ideas we have and just figure out what to quote. So then we can see, we'll quote things that we don't think we can manage for the certain title, but we still do it anyway just to see if it's a good idea. And sometimes we'll just push good ideas that are more expensive because we think it'll help the marketing and help it sell better. It's interesting. It's like strategizing and design in a different way, in a different timeline for different materials. But yeah, so we all meet together and kind of hash it out and see what we think, if we should do something more special or if we should just keep it a little bit standard and try to get it, in the hands of people who don't necessarily mind what it feels like. So it always depends on what the book and the title is.
And when does that happen? Is that happening during these 4 weeks, or is it happening earlier?
Much earlier. Yeah, it's happening usually about solicitation zone. So about 6 to 8 weeks out.
And then, you go into these like 4 to 6 weeks where you're kind of in the design crunch, where you're putting these proofs together, everyone has to review them. Like, what happens if your editor is like, hello, I need to go on vacation, or I have a family emergency, or if your author and illustrator are like, I have to go on vacation or have a family emergency? Like, how does that kind of work with your schedule?
Yeah, let's see. Luckily, I work for a reasonable company, and sometimes we'll just bump the sale dates, I'm not, instead of like producing something that can't be as good as we know it can be if someone was present, then we'll just push the on sale date. Yeah, this usually has to be for a good reason, and we'll usually do it because it's going to cause somebody stress. So, we have to take a reasonable route with that. And sometimes if there's something happening and I'm just like, this scheduling does not make sense for the timeline, I'll just be like, hey, why is this happening so fast? Or why is this push? I want to know if somebody is sick, or, maybe we could finish it quickly and be like, oh, well, I have this idea. I know how to do something. It just needs to be more communication. Just make sure communication is open. But usually I just try to be logical. And if something isn't logical, then I'm questioning why it's happening. So I usually bump it or try to get it done with somebody else or a freelancer, or even if the author's gone, we'll get a fill-in, like someone who does a guest issue or something like that. But we just try to keep it flowing so people aren't pulling their hair out more than they might already be.
So that leads to another question that I know Gina had, which is when and how and why you guys end up hiring freelancers to help you out.
Back when I first started, it was like 4 years ago, and it was just me for like 2.5 years, just one designer doing everything, all the marketing materials, everything.
And you're doing like 55 graphic novels a year.
Yeah, we had at one point like 16 books going out in a month 16, like there's floppies, 16 things going out, and there's all me. And also,
so that's a lot of work.
Yeah, like it was fun. And like, I'm like, okay, when are we getting some more designers? But now we have them. But at least I got to learn a lot. But that's when we would call in the freelancers, is when we had only one designer, which is, makes sense. But so we have some designers that started doing certain series and we just have them following through. So it was like Kaiju Max, Dylan Todd, he's a great freelancer that we brought in. And so he started doing Kaiju Max because I was overloaded so many years ago. And so we just kind of kept him on because he knows the style. He works with Xander well and kind of stuff like that. We're just like, okay, that's one less thing for our department to worry about, which I like because the consistency in the design stays the same. And other times it's usually just because we're overloaded or we think that somebody else might have a better style to match a certain book. It could be like, we're like, oh, we could be overloaded or not, but this person is really nice. We really like them. We want to help build their portfolio. And it just saves us time. And we'd love to like let them try out and see if we could, help them just get some more notoriety for their designs too, because Portland's very small. The community is very friendly and close, I guess I should say. So we're always just kind of like, hey, you want to help out? You want to help out? Come on over and help us out.
So are your freelancers like placing art in the InDesign file? Are they doing lettering? Are they doing coloring? Like, what sort of different freelancers do you hire from the design department?
Yeah, they're mostly doing logo designs and book designs because all of our creators are technically freelance anyway. So like all of our letters, colorists, and illustrators are technically all freelance. So the like freelance designers we get are going to be doing the logos and the book design. And then we get all of their materials back in, usually packaged in a design file. Through FTP or email or Dropbox. And then we will prep them and make sure everything is CMYK and all that. And so that's the step that we'll do and make sure it gets to print on time and gets all the proofing in-house and all that.
I just want to make sure.
Mm-hmm.
So during this, we've been talking a lot about your schedule. Now, is that schedule for trades and original graphic novels? Like you're not just talking about floppies, you're talking about like a book that has a spine that you're doing in essentially 8 weeks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. I've been working with like prose book publishers that have graphic novel imprints, and the difference in time scale. I'm saying this mostly for the benefit of people who are listening to this who don't already know about this. Like, I just want to stress this. Maybe make that months instead of weeks most of the time.
I mean, I doubt that a book publisher who's doing graphic novels is literally going to be like lettering your book for 8 months.
But the cover solicits like 8 months out.
I've done research, because I'm interested in publishing industry in general. So I'm always like reading things and just keeping up with news. And I'm just like, oh my God, like, wait, I look around. Once I found that out, I was like, this is really fast, but it felt fast, but I just didn't know how much longer other publishers took. And so I think it's really good learning lesson for someone to start out in comics because you go so quickly. And then if you ever went somewhere else, you'd really appreciate the time you had. So maybe it's a blessing for all of us.
I just turned in the color thumbnails for my cover for a book that comes out in like September of 2019.
Nice.
And this is really, I have a few friends who did books with Oni first and then moved over to like another imprint, like First Second, and who were like, man, why do they need this from me now? And like, it's all the pieces are coming together now, why they were so confused about why they needed to do that stuff so early. It's just a completely different schedule. I mean, whatever works, it's just interesting.
But I want to know if that's like what other comics publishers do, because I'm just curious. Like, I have no idea. I don't know who makes these rules. I just follow them.
Yes, I mean, you're our guest expert on design, so you are the authority in the room here. I'm like thinking about this, and my experience with book publishing has maybe been like people get a longer amount of time to look at proofs, and like you would design a graphic novel, and then a copy editor would look at it, and that would take a few weeks. And then,
I think a lot of it goes back to like what I said a little bit ago is, and this isn't personal to anybody I know, but I think especially in publishing but what's a slower uptake in comics publishing is the neglect of like the design and production departments in general. It's like we personally need way more time, and we're not really given that much time to do the best job we can. And yeah, so like the timeline is maybe okay for someone who's, writing up the work orders and things like that, but producing things just takes so much longer. So we're always running late. Like our production department and design department are always late because like we don't have enough time for things, but everyone's kind of like, why is this late? And it's like, well, like we're making you late because we never had enough time in the beginning, because people don't fully understand the work that we do. And that's what I think is a big thing, is people not understanding how much time it takes. You don't get it unless you actually, have experience with like clicking the buttons or whatever. It's not magic. And so I think that's difficult for some people to grapple with.
Yeah. And I also think that a smaller dedicated staff, and by dedicated, I don't mean like driven and hardworking. I mean like not having multiple responsibilities, can sometimes turn things around on a dime more than a larger company where it's kind of like the official process is this, goes here, like this goes in the mail and the mail takes a week, or any of that sort of thing.
Our publisher one time, he's talking to me and he's like, yeah, sometimes it's great that we're all like very like multidisciplinary, or however you want to say it. But that means that we're doing like 5 separate things at like 30%, so it adds up to a good percentage, but each of those things might not be performed the best to its ability if we were all dedicated to something, or like really, because I love data management. I love information science. So I'll jump in to help someone else if they need help with like, reorganizing our metadata, but that's not really my job, but somebody needs help with it. But if we were a bigger company, we could like hire someone to do that. So
I do so much shit that isn't technically my job. It's
I
just
love
called
it.
being in comics, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's the thing. And that's what I love. I do love jumping around from task to task, but sometimes my coworkers have to be like, hey, Hilary, like focus. We need you right here, right now. And I'm like, but there's just so many things to do.
Yeah. But also like if you're doing 5 separate things at 30%, you are doing 150%. So that seems like a good amount of percents to be giving to your job.
Exactly. So yeah, I love the breadth of like activities you can partake in when it's a smaller company, because I get kind of bored easily. If I'm just working on just one thing, I want to be able to kind of switch it up. But at the same time, it means that some things might slip under the standards that you want. So just kind of a balance, I think, in prioritizing, learning to prioritize better.
It's like
things like that.
Like using scrappiness in a good way, but not in a bad way, is a difficult thing to.
Yeah. I actually describe myself as scrappy sometimes. I'm pretty scrappy because and it was funny because we moved offices like a little over a year ago, and we had the first day of our move. Everyone was just building IKEA furniture, and I was like, this is great bonding, and we're all like just have to get down and build IKEA furniture, and you have to do things that we don't think you're going to do on the job just because it's just us.
And I'm sure Oni is having a version of it's great that graphic novels are becoming a much bigger thing than they were not very long ago. And that's great. But it also means that I think basically every comics making publisher that has been making comics for more than 5 years at this point is having some version of, we have a system that's worked really well when we were doing X number of books a year, and now we're doing twice that many number of books.
Exactly.
And all of our systems maybe need to be rethought because they don't work as well when you're making twice as many books, even if you hire more people.
Yeah, it's completely true. And like we got more people, that means it's just because we're just trying to keep afloat with the things that aren't new projects. Like we recently had to, just like look through all of our metadata, and we basically did like a data overhaul with just like Amber, our coworker, and me and one other person who are still working on it. But yeah, it was just like crazy. We've never been faced with some of these like business like strategies. It just was so weird. We just have all these new projects to do that didn't necessarily have to do with designing books or, marketing books, but they had to do with our company of publishing books, which was pretty exciting. But it just totally new information. So I get what you're saying for sure.
And Oni's been around a long time.
20 years. It's our 20-year anniversary this year.
Happy anniversary.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah, so it's pretty fun, and we're still trying to keep it underground. Well, that was our no, but it's just a really great, it's just a great place. You're always learning on the job, and I don't feel like if I messed up, it would be such a huge deal. Or, if it's something I could ask questions and not be expected to know everything all the time.
Here's a more overarching design question for you. So you're looking at a book, you're looking at the cover, the half title, all of that stuff. Like, what happens in your mind that says, like, yes, this is a good design, as opposed to looking at it and being like, this is a terrible failure, we have to go back to the drawing board, or just like,
or mediocre, which is the worst sometimes.
Yeah. How, like, what happens in your mind? Like, what things do you look for to be like design good versus design bad?
Yeah. Like, I'm the queen of noodling, but it's because I feel like, let me just see how I can explain this. So like, there's parts of a design, there's typesetting, there's just typography, there's background textures, if any, and, there's space. You have to like deal with space. Things can't move around a certain amount of space away from each other, usually like 0.125 or, multiplied, or like golden ratio type of stuff like that. And I was like, if this can't logically and mathematically like fit in the space, then it means like to the proportions of the page, then it means that it's not working very well. And either you should simplify or you should pick a different typeface or something like that. So I just try to think about the raw proportions of the page and of the space and make everything measured by some certain type of margin and things like that. So I try to get really technical with it. Otherwise, I could just go and play around forever and there would be no parameters, and that's not good either. So I try to, just take a very like mathematical approach so that I can have fun within my boundaries. But like expanding on that, there's also a deadline and there's also other people that are involved in the final design. So if you feel happy with something, then show people and they'll have comments or not. But if you aren't feeling happy, if something isn't feeling right, then you also should show people and see what they think. Because in the end, it's for somebody else. So never like hold your design too closely to your chest. If something isn't feeling right or if something's feeling too right, you definitely need to be checked on that. So definitely print it out, look at it from a different angle, go back to the beginning and simplify.
Do you ever do that thing where you shrink it down really small in Photoshop and to a tiny thumbnail and see what's this going to look like on Amazon kind of thing?
Yes,
or
do that all the time. Yeah, all the time. And I'm like, okay, they're all the same. Like the text is all the same, like color, or like it just looks like a blob. I'm like, okay, there's no hierarchy here. And you like make this bigger. Yeah, I think it's a great way to look at it. Just zoom in, zoom out. Like some people I see who are using the programs, they've never put like an InDesign, like you push W, you do preview mode or not. And like some people just never look at like where their guides are and stuff like that. I'm just like, oh man, you gotta look under the hood and then put the clothes back on or whatever.
You have to see the matrix.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice to people who might be considering a career in comics design? They want to have your job one day. What should they do? What should they be thinking about? Are there good things for them to learn? Like, what's their first step?
I think
they need to be looking at Craigslist.
Yeah. Look on Craigslist. Look where you don't expect, like under the bed. No, just kidding. So I
lots of design there.
Yeah, I think honestly, work on people skills, like soft skills. If we're trying to be super portfolio-y about it, use some buzzwords. Soft skills are really important, and thinking about other people first than just yourself is really important, I think, in terms of being a designer in general. Because like in the end, doesn't really matter what you like. It matters how other people see things. Just have empathy. And that's step one. But yeah, other than that, just don't stop working on designs in your free time. Just whatever your passion is, just do it every waking hour. And then your apartment will look like mine with things everywhere and tripping over books. No, but I think it's just about having passion and having a clear, authentic passion that includes other people and you want to share it with them. And to search for job sites, apply to anything. Or I mean, not anything. Apply to a lot of things that apply to you. And I think just keep practicing. And nowadays, there's so many ways to get involved in the design community outside of a job too, like workshops and all that. So just keep meeting people. And then hopefully you will find the Craigslist ad.
What about for cartoonists who want to do good design or who want to work with their designer well? Do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, I think just being really open to communication, obviously, and also open to like seeing things that might not be perfect at first and like understanding that it's like a development journey. At the very beginning when I started out, I would show editors things that were like really conceptual and they were like, what am I looking at? And I was just like, oh shoot, I forgot to prime you on the fact that this is how my brain works, things like that. And be like, but the text isn't centered. I'm like, yeah, I'll get there. Like, look at the color, look at the composition. But like, not everybody thinks that way. So like as a non-designer or, an artist, colorist, like even taking those fine art skills or even a writer, just taking that type of like themes, the imagery, like realize that it's a developmental process and we're kind of in this one and the same where we're working on something to get to that final end point, not just showing you something that's perfect at the beginning. Like we want to work with you to develop something. We don't want to just show you something and tell you how it is because we're not sure yet. And we want to work with you about it. Figure it out.
It's so interesting listening to you talk about this. I hadn't really thought about this before, but it occurs to me that in a way, design is very much like hand in hand with editorial, and that it's a job that's ultimately about being invisible. Like you're basically working in service of making this book the best version of itself that it can be, in a way that should feel totally transparent to the person picking the book up.
Exactly. Yeah, design is like, good design is invisible is one of the quotes. I can't remember who that's from, maybe like Paul Rand or something. But yeah, and it's kind of like, we're like, not to sound boring or bland, but we're kind of a service provider. We're here for you. And like, the design is all about storytelling. It's about telling your story. And you're also, as a creator or author, I'm assuming you also kind of want to separate yourself from your story. So it's like a floating little book in the air. It's like this whole little thing that's just all separate from us, but we're all touching it and making it happen. If I described that well. But yeah, it's like a whole new little baby in the world. It's like, it's a living thing. It has a lifespan, and you want to not just have your name plastered all over it.
Also, the image that I had just then is basically the book crowd surfing as we all like support it and pass it along.
With sparkles around it. Yeah, like
Yes.
a purple sparkle sheen.
Yes. Until it gets to go up on stage.
Yep, exactly.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to talk about? I think we're about wrapped up, unless we missed anything, which is, of course, 100% possible, 150% possible.
Yeah, no, I think that covers it. I mean, I just like want to give a shout out to my design and production team and Oni Press, because they rule, and that's about it.
We condone shout outs here on Graphic Novel TK.
Oh, good.
Indeed. Also, I quite like all of the people at Oni and the books that you do.
Yeah, Hilary, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about all this.
Yeah, thanks. It was really awesome. I really enjoyed it a lot.
Oh, us too. It was so good to get to talk to you.
Well, if you ever need any more design talks, I am here.
Graphic Novel TK is co-produced by Gina Gagliano and Allison Wilgus and is brought to you by The Beat. You can find our show notes along with other comics news and podcasts at comicsbeat.com. Our podcast graphics were created by Shivana Sokdeo. Our theme music is by Poddington Bear. You can follow us on Twitter at Graphic Novel TK or email us at graphicnoveltk@gmail.com.